How's it going, everyone? Sethphir here, and welcome back to another Tower of Fantasy video. Today is going to be my advanced guide for Shiro, and I'm going to teach you how to do a lot of tips and tricks, including damage exactly like this.
お前はもう死んでいる。何?
So before we become expert Shiro players, we must first understand how she works, and what better place to do that than right next to the ocean, Shiro's favorite spot herself. The breakdown for this video is going to include Shiro's basics, followed by her combos, the best team compositions to place her in, the best matrices to use on her, then the best damage output that you can possibly produce for your time spent, and finally some advanced tips at the end. This guide will also cover how to play Shiro at all star levels, including low star levels, and walk you through what changes as her star levels evolve, so when you get more copies of her, you will better understand how to use the character. So let's go ahead and dive into the basics of Shiro. Shiro is categorized as a DPS weapon, however she has a very high shatter capability with pretty generous charge as well. She is a physical style weapon, which means she can apply the Grievous debuff for 20% extra damage, and she has a lot of nifty tricks that you can use to really start pumping up those numbers. In addition to that, she comes with the attack, HP, and crit stat line on her weapon, so you will also enjoy some extra bonus stats onto your character lineup. Shiro has an arsenal of abilities, including Rapid Throw, a 5-hit auto attack combo, Aerial Discharge, which is a 3-hit aerial combo, Scatter, which is going to allow you to hold the attack button after the second normal attack to throw 5 chakrams, Air Spin, which is a very powerful and hard-hitting move that will allow you to throw a single chakram for an explosive strike, and lastly but not least, a Sneak Attack, which will allow you to attack your targets from behind, but this generally isn't that useful. The Dodge Attack, Waning Moon, will play a key part in her combos and advanced levels of damage, as it will create a damage bursting move that will also trigger 3 chakrams to split in directions, which does have a combo with her skill Full Bloom. Speaking of Full Bloom, this will create a chakram domain around your character that will slow the speed of enemies by 30%, and also allow chakrams to bounce within the ring, including the ones created from the skill and anything produced by your Waning Moon combo. Her final ultimate skill or discharge, Spirit of the Air, will generate a little creature on the ground that pulses out periodic physical damage and stuns target in an AoE radius, which can be very useful, but doesn't produce that much damage. Think of this more as a utility skill. Shiro has 3 combos which are very unique to this character, and in my opinion make her have a higher skill cap than a lot of the other characters within the game. Her first combo set is going to come from her ground attacks, which is going to be the 1-2 throw 5 chakrams, which does a large amount of damage, and we can get into that more in detail later. The second combo is going to come from jumping in the air and attacking twice and holding down the left click, which will allow you to launch a powerful chakram that does a lot of damage. The third combo comes from her 1 skill Full Bloom in correlation with the dodge attack Waning Moon. First, you will lay down the skill, and then use Waning Moon to hit a target within the area. Once you hit that target, the chakrams from Waning Moon will continue to bounce within the area, dealing more and more damage. The best team compositions for Shiro are currently Shiro, Samir, and Nemesis, using a Volt team with Shiro as the Shatterer character for the lineup, and you can also exchange Samir for Claudia if you do have it, and focus on a more physical-oriented team if that's what you wish to do. That will be a very powerful lineup as well. She has a lot of good synergy and combos with a lot of these characters, and keep in mind that since she is categorized as a DPS weapon, technically you will be able to trigger the attack resonance, which is very important for a lot of combinations. In the future, for team compositions with Shiro, you could probably look towards Lyra, as well as some other things like Claudia in an all-physical team, and maybe even some combos down the line with weapons that have high skill cooldowns. And lastly, you can consider using Shiro as a powerful supporting weapon with the tank archetype. So you could use something like Meryl, Huma, and Shiro, because you will be able to buff your allies if you have at least 1 star, and maintain the Grievous effect on damaged enemies for quite a long duration of time. The same can be said with support characters, so if you're using something like Nemesis, Coco, or Zero, you can throw in Shiro to the mix to increase your team's damage output. Shiro has a lot of strong matrices options within the game. There are a variety of uses for her. You can build her as a DPS or as a shatter, but her best matrice is going to come from the Huma set. The Huma 2-piece set will allow your dodge skills to inflict a bleed every time they hit, and since Shiro's skill will hit first and then a 3-time split after, you're going to trigger that bleed on every single hit, which is going to add up for a lot of damage. So that makes Huma a very, very strong and viable set with Shiro. If you manage to have Cobalt B's matrices, this will also proc the fire damage on it, making it even stronger than Huma's matrices if you chose to pull on those. In addition to that, you can also consider using Samir. You could use Crow, as well as Shiro's set herself, since she is technically a shatter character, and you can use her in that style of play. If you do not have gold matrices available to you, having something like Sobek or Robarg can be very powerful if you want to play it as a DPS character or a Shatter Elemental character. Next, we will talk about the star levels for Shiro. She's a very powerful character even at 0 stars, but she does get a lot better as her stars advance. At 1 star, your full bloom effect will have a bigger range and increase damage dealt to everything by 30%, as well as elemental shattering effects within the circle. This is going to work for your party as well, so if you're using Shiro, she is very, very strong to bring to the table, even if you're playing a tank build, because you can use this as a utility weapon to buff the damage of your teammates. Shiro's 2nd star ability is just a simple attack growth, so skipping on to the 3rd star ability, this is where the character starts to get more mechanics. You're going to increase the shatter by 15% and reset all weapon cooldowns when you shatter a target's shield. This is going to include Shiro's skill herself, as well as every single other character's skill on your roster. So you can reset Nemesis's totem, you can reset Samir's little shock orb, you can reset all other characters' skill cooldown, so keep that in mind, as this is a very strong and viable tactic, especially when you have characters with high skill cooldown abilities that do a lot of damage. The 4th star will trigger HP growth by 32%, not exactly what we want, but hey, it's something. And moving on to the 5th star, that will trigger a Grievous extension effect by 7 more seconds whenever you hit a target with Grievous, so that means you're going to have double the uptime on Grievous before you have to maintain the effect. So this is very useful, allowing her to have one of the best uptimes on that 20% damage buff for your entire team to benefit from. Her 6th and final star is pretty powerful as well. When you use full bloom, you have 100% crit chance for the next 8 seconds, which means absolutely everything you do is going to crit, and this does work when you switch weapons, so if you go ahead and switch to another weapon, you will still have 100% crit chance. Now let's talk about damage. How Shiro does her damage and her best skills. Her best skill by far for just normal DPS without using anything at all is going to be the 1-2 hold attack combo. You need to be in sort of mid-range to make this worth, so you can get all 5 chakrams to hit the target, because if you are farther range away, you will miss with some of those chakrams. And remember that all of Shiro's attacks pierce. In addition to piercing, a lot of her small attacks will return to you, so you can see the chakram ring extend out, do damage, and come back and hit another time. Her 2nd best damage output is going to be her dodge attack, and that is going to trigger a lot of DPS when you hit it, because it's going to hit 1 time, split 3 times and hit that same enemy, and it will also proc Huma's bleed if you happen to have that as well. In addition to that, she also has a lot of other powerful damage moves, including her 1 skill, and if you bounce chakrams within the ring, it will pretty much eliminate and vaporize anything inside of here, and that's how you see those massive damage numbers in the beginning of the video. If an enemy is giving you trouble in the air, you can jump up and use your heat-seeking launch ability for holding the attack within the air, which will deal a large chunk of damage, so keep that in mind. So against like Valkyrie, this is very useful because this will home in and auto hit any target in the area. Finally, my advanced tips for Shiro. I think Shiro is best played in mid-range and is a very powerful skill cooldown. You need to make sure you make use of this, especially with the hologram projector. You can create 2 instances of her full bloom ring with the hologram projector, which means that you're going to have double the damage spinning inside of this little area, so make sure to make use of that. And to ensure that you get maximum charges, you can do 3 attacks while your full bloom is in effect. Do a 1-2 hit combo with throwing 5 chakrams, and then finally fire a 4th ring for the dodge attack after, which will ensure that you get 4 sets of bouncing chakrams inside of full bloom skill's ability. Once your skill is off cooldown, your best damage source is going to be the 1-2 5 chakram combo. So you just simply click twice and then hold click, and that will launch out that attack. It does incredibly high damage compared to a lot of people's abilities within the game, so Shiro is a very, very powerful character. Another advanced tip to keep note of is to make sure that when you're about to go fight an enemy, you want to trigger Grievous effects. So if you're ever partially full on discharge, like I am right here, you can simply walk up, use your zone, and start spinning the dodge attacks with inside of it, and generally your meter should fill to full, which will allow you to proc the Grievous ability. So keep that in mind when you're starting up a boss or a combo. You want to put that Grievous on as fast as possible. My final advanced tip is going to be when you proc the cooldown of Full Bloom's reset with the 3 stars. If you have 3 stars, you will be inclined to save it a lot of times. There is a time to save it for new shields when they appear so that you can keep infinitely proccing the reset, but sometimes just using it immediately for more DPS can be the way to go, so you're going to have to be the judge of that in your own shoes and decide what is best for you. That's going to be everything I know about Shiro, and I hope that this guide helps you. Shiro was a character that I originally didn't really want to play. I just happened to pull a lot of copies of her, and since I had a lot of copies of her, I was sort of forced to use her, and through that I learned a lot of tricks, and I figured out that she's actually very strong, and in my opinion, one of the strongest characters in the game right now. I hope that you also enjoy Shiro and these tips and advanced guide series. If you did, make sure to subscribe, like, and hit the bell to show your support for the video, as we will continue these advanced guide series into the future with several of the other characters within the game. Thanks for your time and watching the video, and we will see you in the next one.